So you know how parents just kind of talk out loud. She was like, I got to find a place where I can get cash back. And Naz from the back seat was like, we can go to McDonald's, them give cash back. And it was so cute and it was so funny, but what he was describing was just an exchange of money. He knows that when he goes to McDonald's to get a Happy Meal, mom gives money and they may give her change back, not necessarily cash back. And so that was like, that's a teaching moment for me as a founder, as a mom, as an educator. And it's also a learning environment, a real-time learning experience. We got to give them real-time stuff. The fluff on paper, where's the practical application? I'm Dr. Casey Fox, and I am the founder, CEO of 540 View, also known as Black to Basics. 540 View, Black to Basics, is a tech ed company that was founded here in Dallas, Texas, by myself and several of my colleagues. And what we are essentially is a tech educational company that is dedicated and committed to teaching children from early childhood through adolescent, through preteen, and then on to their teenage years, certain principles that they otherwise would not receive in traditional learning environments. We have 3 strong verticals that we focus on in our education for Black and brown kids. And I'll talk a little bit more about why I keep focusing on the Black and brown kids, because that is a different plight and it is a different challenge that we have to face as educators and leaders. But essentially, one of our primary products is our history line. It teaches kids history in a way that gets them back to the basics of principles of learning, like my daughter likes to say, back in the day. I've always been a big mantra person on if it's not broken, don't try to fix it. And so some of those skill sets we use, memorization skill sets, repetition, matching, all of those things can still be incorporated in a modernized way that move kids forward. So our history line has 4 products in it. There are the History Hero Match Cards. There are there's the Alphabet Black Inventions chart and banner that teaches kids their ABCs while giving them representation of folks that look like them, that created things that they use every day, like the Super Soaker. And there's a couple of other products in there that just kind of offset those things, but along the same lines of education. The second vertical that I really am excited to tell you about is our financial literacy line. We have 3 products in that line. From birth all the way up to the ages of 18, we have From Piggy to Profit, which is a board book that teaches the money cycle as we see money and how it works in 5 phases. Then we have Dollars and Decisions, which is a practical application, interactive workbook for kids to get a little bit more into learning some of the key terms of money, start embedding that into their psyche so that those are commonplace vocabulary words for them. And then we have, which is my favorite of the financial literacy line, the money cycle, which I can't give you guys all of the deets about it, but it's going to be so exciting. And I know we're going to have an opportunity to play it and demo it. And then last but not least, as minority Americans, we have there's different challenges for us around our health and our wellness. As you know, we are the #1 group that suffers from things like diabetes and high blood pressure. And so I think that those are habitual things that, if taught at an early age, can teach kids. I remember when I was a kid, we learned about the 5 food groups or whatever the situation. I don't even know if they do that anymore. But as things have evolved, we need to fill a gap. And, most of you, you don't even have to be political, so to speak. You see what's going on and the different things that are been taken out of public school education. So that doesn't mean that the issues go away. That just means someone else has to step up and fill the void there. And I raise my hand to do that. And I'm committed to that process. So I do have an honorary doctorate degree that was awarded to me for things that speak to the core of who I am. At the core of who I am, I'm a person of service. And so my honorary doctorate sits with social justice, social impact, and humanitarian work. The reason I sat with this for many years. I'm a firm believer in do it right or don't do it at all. Because a microphone is a very dangerous entity if put into the wrong hands. So I sat with this for a very long time to make sure that I got this right. So if I can just share what my process was by trade, I'm a journalist. I was 20 years in the media and as an executive, and I did very well there before I went on to become an entrepreneur. So I'm not an educator by scholar threshold, but I'm smart enough to know that I need to enlist experts in that space. So I tapped folks with PhDs in the education field and said, I have a vision, but I need your help. So it was a collaborative effort. And in that collaborative effort, I spoke with early childhood educators, developers, school teachers, assistant school teachers, school bus drivers. And I said, hey, here's my vision. And I talked to 5-year-olds. I talked to lots of 5-year-olds and said, what do you want to know? What do you just ask them all of these questions that would help me to gain insight into the products that we will bring to the marketplace. And so I tapped those individual experts, and it was in that study and in those focus groups that I learned that this had to happen at the age of 0. I know it sounds absolutely ridiculous to some, but even if you read, there's research that shows that reading to a child in the womb is even beneficial. So there is no too young to learn. Kids soak up whatever it is that we feed them. And so as adults and educators, community leaders, entrepreneurs, we have a responsibility to make sure that what they're getting is sound. And so that is what led me to that, starting so young as far as a toddler or even an infant that you can read to through like our board book called Pick It a Profit. When you go into any business in any industry, it's imperative. I did 12 years in the Air Force. One of the most important things I learned there is to work smarter, not harder. Sorry, Army cats. I know y'all had a different mantra. But in the Air Force, one of our running things was we always want to work smarter and not harder. We want to learn from other people's mistakes. We want to put the sweat equity in on the front end. Number one, it's going to save you time and energy. Number two, it's going to save you money. So know your stuff. It is extremely important. I can't impress that enough because, again, this was a very different industry for me to step into. I knew that through research and reading and just caring as a mom, I knew that there was work that needed to be done. So, you got to have the foresight to understand who you're serving and what you're serving up. So no matter what industry, that should be in your top 3 have to do's, must do's, gotta do's, whatever dialect, whatever part of the coast you're from in the country or abroad. You got to know, you got to have those 3 things in place. So oftentimes I'm asked what my why is for creating a company that could be viewed as polarizing, and I definitely gave it a polarizing name on purpose, Black to Basics. The 540 view, if I may just level set that because it's kind of a interesting name. So I will relate to the military a lot. And so when I keep going back to something that means that I stand on it because it worked. So in my job, I was an instructor for the government, and I taught troops certain courses before they were ready to deploy. I worked at a deployment readiness center, and I was an instructor. And one time we were doing a mission planning curriculum. We was talking about mission planning, actually planning for wartime and peacetime. I know I'm so cute, but yes, I went to war. But so 540 view, I had this, I think he was a master sergeant at the time or a senior master sergeant. I don't know, I've slept since then. But he would teach us about security and how security is 360 degrees. But he went on to say, oftentimes when someone is put in a compromising position or they fall short or they start to see failures or vulnerabilities, it's because they forgot to consider the space above and below them, which adds the extra degrees to your full-on security. So I'm no philosopher, but that stuck with me because it's applicable in the civilian world too. Everything is, as a business owner, you need to be cognizant of everything that's going on around you But there's also real space and real life above and below you. And those are usually untapped opportunities. That's how you beat your competition. 2, because the average person is thinking 360 degrees. You know, what do I have that my competitor don't have? Most of the time, people never look up and down. There's still open space. There's still open opportunity. So I just wanted to point that out. But I gave it a polarizing name and everything for a reason, because I need people to understand my why. You can understand that we all have a responsibility to train, teach, coach, and navigate the next generation to their wins, because unfortunately, we all got to go one day. And so it's important that we're leaving tangibles. Notice I said tangibles, not just a talking head. We got to leave something behind that they can touch, that they can feel, that they can use, a real blueprint. So that's really my why. In that, also doubling down and talking to a very special little 6-year-old in my life, Nazareth, who is the brand ambassador for the company. I was asking him about what he learned at school during Black History Month and what they were talking about. And he told me he learned about MLK Jr., which I think is absolutely necessary and absolutely important, but that was all he can verbalize to me. And I'm like, there's so much more to your Black history, even currently, in current day. I understand that MLK did work that unmatched work in the 60s around the civil rights movement and beyond, in all different types of areas. But there's so many other people that Nazareth should have been able to relate to that is also Black history. And so I knew then that I needed to give him something tangible, something he can see and touch in real time that's still above ground. Simone Biles is Black history. Colin Kaepernick is Black history. Beyonce Knowles is Black history. Nelson Mandela is Black history. I'm Black history. And so in order to be able to really drill that in, I had to really think about why I needed to do this. So it became more of a want. It became more of a need than a want. Like, it's very necessary. And so therein lies my why. So this business will be a multi-million-dollar business because kids won't stop being born, which means that the teaching, the educational piece of it, component of it, has to continue. And because I'm dedicated to seeing this through. And what success looks like for me outside of it being $1 million business is to seeing the little Nazareths of the world go on to put their name in a hat for President of the United States of America, because he flipped over a flash card and saw a man by the name of Barack Obama that favors him in his older age. And so that would be the epitome of success for the company, is just seeing these kids be able to do that. Having a kid understand. I'll tell you guys another quick funny story. So Nazareth, again, was with his mom, and he said she was looking for a place that was going to be able to give her cash back. She was like, I got to find some, you know how parents just kind of talk out loud. She was like, I got to find a place where I can get cash back. And Naz from the back seat was like, we can go to McDonald's, them give cash back. And it was so cute and it was so funny, but what he was describing was just an exchange of money. He knows that when he goes to McDonald's to get a Happy Meal, mom gives money and they may give her change back, not necessarily cash back. And so that was like, that's a teaching moment for me as a founder, as a mom, as an educator. And it's also a learning environment, a real-time learning experience. We got to give them real-time stuff. The fluff on paper, where's the practical application? But they got to have that practical application. So that was a teaching moment. And I referred to mom. I said, hey, explain to him the difference between getting your change back and getting cash back. He needs to understand that cash back is smart borrowing, so to speak, that's coming from someplace. Your earn wallet, this will make more sense when you guys see the money cycle game. It's either coming from your earn wallet or a smart borrowing. It's either coming from a debit card or a credit card. In kids' terms, your earn wallet or your smart borrowing wallet. So nonetheless, it's those little things. We have to be active listeners as aunts, as parents, as older siblings, as mom, dads, and teachers, so that we can be able to fill that void before the world or social media teaches them that they could make $1 million overnight in the stock exchange. So it's dangerous. So there's a responsibility we have to our youth. So in any business, in any endeavor, you're going to have pros and cons. We first need to change our mindset. Pros and cons is not synonymous of the words negative and positive. If you don't have any cons in your business plan, that means you're not going to have any contingency in your business plan. And if you don't have any contingency in your business plan, you're not a real business owner, or not a smart, savvy one. I'm sorry, argue with your mom. But I think that every entity should have pros and cons, no matter how smart you are, no matter how wealthy. I know it may be commonplace to log into YouTube and have a business owner, an expert, someone who has done well to say, oh, capital's the number one con. We don't have enough money. That's more of an obstacle than a con. A con to me means that something that's not likely to happen. And I feel like with the right strategy, the right network, the right pieces in place, the right tools in your toolbox, that can be negated. So we first got to change our mindset, the way we look at pros and cons. It's not positive or negative. It's just two realistic things that have to be addressed. But in this business specifically, some of the pros, or the number one pro, I go back to this, is to see a child come out with something they didn't have before. A new thing that they learn, a piece of knowledge, more confidence in what they're talking about and who they are as themselves. That would be the biggest pro for me. A con would be just the naysayers. When we first launched this product, I was trolled so heavy on social media. Bad. Because some of our, I just call them what they are, ops, adversaries, had an issue with brown faces on my damn game. And I'm like, but you turn on the TV and there's a bunch of non-melanated folks all over the screen, and that's not offensive to you, but you're offended by characters on a card game for brown kids. I call it a con just because it's a distraction for people who those things don't get to me. It was fuel for me. I added a brown person that same day to the card just to add a little brown curly headed girl to the card that wasn't there before. But it's that type of ignorance that can feel like a con to a business. And for several folks in my office, specifically my social media digital manager, she called me up and she was like, boss lady, there's some negative things. I said, that's okay. It's quite all right. Not everybody's going to be pleased, and maybe it's not for them, but maybe it is for them because they're just as ignorant as anything I've ever seen if they have issue with brown faces for representation on something that's beneficial to kids that have brown faces. So if I had to pick just two pros and cons, it would probably be those. Guys, this has been so rewarding. I am here with, I want to say, probably my favorite group of people from SMB World, a very progressive entity that have vision like I haven't seen before in this generation. So we just had a blast talking about 540 View and all of the different things that we're bringing to the marketplace through Black to Basics. And I'm Dr. Casey Fox, and I hope to talk to you all again very soon.